My name is Karen Hall. I'm 28 years old and work as a nurse. My life has always been busy, moving between the hospital and home. I've grown used to this routine, but recently, something changed. Someone entered my life that made me rethink everything. Joey. He worked as a medical representative, and we met through work. At first, I didn't expect much, but as we spent more time together, we grew close. We eventually started dating, and it didn't take long for us to talk about the future, including marriage. It seemed like everything was falling into place. I couldn't believe how well things were going with Joey. We were talking about marriage, and I was so excited to introduce him to my parents. I made the call, letting them know that I was bringing him over to meet them. I had a good feeling about this. Joey was kind, and my parents seemed to like him right away. The conversation was warm and easy, with lots of laughter. Everything felt perfect. Until the doorbell rang. That's when my younger sister Sandra arrived. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw her face. She always had a way of causing trouble. Sandra was 2 years younger than me, and we were completely different. While I was quiet, introverted, and loved reading, Sandra was outgoing, flamboyant, and always chasing attention. She worked in an apparel store, and her style was flashy, unlike mine. Over the years, we hadn't been that close, and I had learned to distance myself from her. There had been too many moments when she'd tried to get my boyfriends or ruin my relationships. I had seen her do it in high school, and it crushed me when she stole my first real boyfriend right out of my life. As she walked in, I felt a familiar knot in my stomach. Sandra was good at acting sweet, especially around my boyfriends. She walked over to Joey, flashing a big smile. "Nice to meet you. I'm Sandra," she said as if we were old friends. It felt forced, and I could tell Joey was uncomfortable. I tried to shake it off, but the old feelings of anxiety crept up. I had hoped she had outgrown this habit, but something told me she hadn't. As the evening went on, I couldn't stop glancing at them, noticing how they seemed to be chatting a little too comfortably for my liking. After dinner, we talked about the wedding. We were excited, planning every detail. Sandra, of course, invited herself to come along when I went dress shopping. I didn't mind at first. She was my sister after all. But I started to feel uneasy when she began giving Joey too much attention. While I tried on dresses, Sandra kept telling Joey which ones would look better on me. It felt like she was trying to take charge. I couldn't understand why she kept inserting herself into my relationship with Joey. Was she really this eager to be involved, or was something more sinister going on? The days went by, and I pushed the unsettling feelings to the back of my mind. But when there was just a month left before the wedding, Sandra called me out of the blue. "We need to talk," she said, her tone serious. I could feel my stomach churn with anxiety. When I arrived at the place she mentioned, I was shocked to find Joey there too. Something was wrong. Sandra looked at me with a strange expression before finally admitting, "I'm in love with Joey." My heart sank. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And then Joey spoke up. "Karen, I'm sorry. We've been seeing each other for a while now." The room seemed to spin as I processed what was happening. My sister had stolen my fiancé, just like she had stolen my boyfriends in the past. But this time, it was different. This wasn't just about jealousy or attention. It was about betrayal, and it was a deep wound. Sandra didn't stop there. She casually added, "I'm pregnant, by the way." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't process it all. It felt like my entire world had just crumbled around me. How could this happen? How could Joey, the man I trusted, do this to me? The shock was overwhelming, and I fainted. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, with my parents standing by my side. Their faces were filled with concern, but I couldn't understand why they were acting so calm. I asked about Sandra, and my dad's response was chilling. "I've cut ties with her. he said coldly. Forget about your fiancé too, Karen. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Sandra had not only taken Joey from me, but had also destroyed our family. It would take years for me to heal from this betrayal. 5 years passed, and I did my best to move on. I focused on my work and kept to myself. I couldn't even think about starting a new relationship. My heart was still shattered from what Sandra had done. But then, out of nowhere, she reappeared. It was a phone call, and I didn't recognize the number. When I answered, I was stunned to hear Sandra's voice on the other end. "Big sis," she said casually. "It's been 5 years, hasn't it? How are you?" I couldn't believe it. How could she speak to me like nothing had happened? Sandra didn't waste any time with pleasantries. "I need you to do me a favor," she said, her tone as nonchalant as ever. "I need you to take care of my daughter." What? I couldn't understand. This was the same woman who had abandoned her child all those years ago. Now she was asking me to raise her? I tried to refuse, but Sandra wouldn't take no for an answer. She was insistent, even as she casually told me she didn't need the child anymore. I didn't know what to think. How could she just hand her daughter off like she was a piece of luggage? Then Sandra pushed her daughter in front of me. The little girl was 6 years old, with wide, curious eyes. Her name was Linda, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was the child my sister had abandoned. Sandra, without a hint of guilt, handed me the child and said, "I'm leaving tonight. I don't want her. You take care of her." The words were cold and detached. I looked at Linda, who was trembling and seemed scared. My heart broke for her. No matter how angry I was at Sandra, I couldn't turn my back on the child. I brought Linda into my home, feeling a mixture of confusion and anger. As a nurse, I quickly noticed how frail and thin she was. Her clothes were torn and stained, and her hair was tangled with dirt. She looked so small for her age, and when I gave her food, she ate it with such hunger, as though she hadn't eaten in days. It was clear to me that Sandra had never cared for her. I immediately contacted my parents and my husband, explaining the situation. I couldn't leave this child in the state she was in. We had to help her. As I learned more about Linda's life, it became clear just how much she had suffered. She had been neglected at school, and her teachers had reached out to Sandra several times, but she never responded. Linda had become a quiet, isolated child with behavioral problems. The school had even considered reporting the situation to Child Protective Services. But now that Linda was in my care, I vowed to protect her. We couldn't let her go back to Sandra, not after everything she had been through. It was clear to me that I had to be the one to raise her, no matter what it took. At first, Linda was shy and kept to herself. She didn't speak much, and I could see that she was struggling with trust. I understood, though. She had been through so much, and it would take time for her to heal. Slowly, I began to shower her with love and attention, teaching her how to trust again. Little by little, she started to open up. I saw a spark in her, a desire to be loved and cared for. The first time she smiled at me, my heart melted. I knew this was the beginning of a new chapter for both of us. Linda started to thrive in our home. She gained weight, her energy returned, and she even made a few friends at school. She started dancing, a passion I hadn't expected. It was amazing to watch her grow and find something she loved. She even earned a scholarship to a prestigious dance school. But just as things were starting to look bright, Sandra reappeared. She had heard about Linda's success and wanted to take her back. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I had fought too hard to give Linda a safe place, a place where she belonged. At the funeral of our mother, Sandra showed up, as arrogant as ever. She wore a bright, flashy dress and sunglasses, acting as though she were the star of the show. When she saw Linda, She smiled in that sickening way she always did. "Come live with me, Linda," she said, as if she had the right to just take her back. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she think she could take Linda after everything she'd put her through? I stood my ground, telling Sandra she had no right to take Linda away. I wouldn't let her destroy my daughter's future. And so, the battle continued. Sandra tried to claim Linda as her own, but it was clear to everyone that she wasn't fit to be a mother. Linda had found her family with us, and we weren't going to let Sandra take that away. The truth about Sandra's past actions started to spread, and she was exposed for the liar and manipulator she was. As for Linda, she kept shining brighter and brighter. Despite her troubled past, she was determined to make something of herself. She eventually became a famous actress, but her true calling was helping other children like her. Linda's strength and determination filled me with pride. Years have passed now. Linda is thriving, pursuing her dreams, and I couldn't be happier. She's a successful actress, and now she's studying to help other children who've been abandoned. As for Sandra, she's nowhere to be found. She tried to use Linda for fame and money, but it didn't work. In the end, Linda's success became her own form of revenge against the woman who abandoned her. And for me, I've found peace. My family is whole, and we're stronger than ever before. We'll face whatever comes next together.